Hey guys, Dr. Prometheus here, and welcome to the off season of our Blue Jays, the edited version, so you guys don't have to sit through the 2-hour live stream. We got some big stuff go on this season with our Blue Jays in winning the World Series, and the point of this was try to keep as much of the core together as possible. But first, we're going to look through some of the stats, and this time I did have a stat save set up. So first thing, Vaughn Seacrest, who we drafted last season, I think it was, or maybe 2 seasons ago, up to an 81 overall, about a 303 at AAA, kind of our contingency I'm bringing up if we have to move on from a guy like Javi Baez. Miguel Jurado really struggled against left-handed on the contact and only batted 239. Jordan Groshans, 249 for a guy that has seen a little MLB service, not much, if that, maybe a couple weeks, or September call-ups. And then Peter Kobayashi was up for September call-ups, and the same thing, struggled against left-handed hitting, but he is a left-handed batter. Trade Cabbage, though, we liked his ability to maybe be out in the outfield and play some infield, and his potential is decreasing. Over on the pitching at AAA, really our focus over the last couple of seasons and our strong suit, Braxton Ashcraft looked very good. Hans Kraus, 2 guys that we did trade, looked pretty good at AAA. Ryan Avery, who's up as one of the top players in the MLB, still progressing, and he's going to take some time at AAA still. And Dwayne Gowdry, the guy is going to see some MLB action going into next year. 3.52 ERA, 1.20 WHIP. Just didn't get the run support though, and came out 5-10. Down at AA, Alejandro Diaz is a D overall, but had some good pitching situations and came up with some big wins. And so did Barry Hardwick, both of them getting at least 10 wins going in to this season. And so did Aradal. On the hitting side, Alex Rowe, 219, not impressed. He's going to stay down at AA. Orvelis Martinez, we have a lot of guys up at AAA in the infield, so I want him to get some playing time. Same thing with Jonathan Naito. Even though they play decent at AA, to move up, they'll get more playing time down at, or actually moving up to AAA, they'll get more playing time down at AA. So they'll stay down there. Same thing with Michael Copeland, but again, another right-handed batter that struggled against lefties, but still batted 285. That's pretty good. 21 years old. Jermaine Skelton, kind of flirting around that 69 to 70 overall. Had some issues in the contact department, batted still 234, but some injury issues. Tahito Yamashita, 23 years old, progressing slowly but surely, and batted 250 this season. Still far from being ready to be called up to AAA. One of the guys we've been monitoring since we drafted him, Cedric Downey, batted 305 at AA at 64 overall, and he is getting better and better by the year. Only 23 years old, so maybe a late bloomer up the MLB level, but looks pretty good. Alfonso Rivas, left-hander, pretty much probably going to be a guy that stays down in the minors for the rest of his time. So looking at the majors, we had a great pitching rotation, especially in the top 3, with Julio Urias, Alek Manoah, and rounding it out with Tyler Mahle. We had some trades that we had to do when Kenta Maeda went down. We picked up Chris Sale. He's still an 86 overall, even at 35 years old. We might look at bringing him back depending on what the price is and what our cap space looks like. I'm hoping that we can bring him back, but we'll have to see ultimately what we can do. Tyler Mahle was great in the season, ended up winning the Cy Young. However, didn't really prove all that much in playoff, but he hasn't had a lot of playoff experience. And then going in to the guys that will likely be in the bullpen or possibly trade bait for this offseason. Kenta Maeda, that contract's massive. We might have to lose that money. And Zach Logue, who goes into arbitration. In the bullpen, Colin Pache was a huge part of our setup, but also the guys in the middle relief that can keep the games close. Whitley, as the year went on, got better, but Whitley is on a much cheaper contract. Jordan Hicks struggled at times in the playoffs. His contract does go down over time, which may make him more of an attractive guy to keep on to the roster. But Hicks, even though he didn't blow a lot of saves during the season, still had 47 saves, 9 blown saves. We had this guy, Jason Farrell, at 86 overall, 24 years old, been at the MLB for a year and some change, and I think he could be the future at our closer position. Freddie Peralta has that flexibility, but also the fact that we relied on him in the playoffs kind of makes Hicks the odd man out. We looked at Schwarber. Schwarber still on contract for cheap after having a couple of down seasons. Moreno is not ready at this point to take over, so there's no reason to really move on from Schwarber at this time. Guerrero, just wanted to see what his stats were, and he is batting .275 for the franchise right now, which is amazing. Biggio, the oldest of our Sons of Legends per se. We're trying to get in the Hall of Fame at 29 years old. His batting average was better. The best it's been since 2021, but we need something going. And Jose Altuve still batting down more from his 312 batting average. But he did have some time when he was injured, so he played 30 less games. And I think that's why his RBI total and home runs are lower. Baez, though, 235, just up and down. You either get all of it with Baez or you get none of it and you get strikeouts. But hey, he came on strong in the World Series. Bo Bichette did win this World Series MVP. Tyler Mahle was your Cy Young winner. Those are our two big awards, and our postseason MVP was Cavan Biggo. So looking at the retired players, 3 big names. I think it was Lance Lynn, who was on our team. We had him in the bullpen when Kenta Maeda went down with a long-term injury. And then we also needed some depth because Logue had some injuries at some point this season and some of the other pitchers. So he will retire because of age. Aroldis Chapman was down maybe in the Yankees organization in the minors. At this point, he is going to retire as well at 38 years old, citing his age as he's had 14 productive seasons in the MLB. I always like Aroldis Chapman. The guy did some great stuff for the Cubs, but he has chosen to hang it up. And the other one, at 38 years old, Clayton Kershaw, which is a future Hall of Famer. You'll see it in the next one. Here we go. Will play for 18 years with a career 2.47 ERA. Just shy of 230 wins. So he is your Hall of Famer. For free agency, the guys in the 5-day negotiation period, we look at Pache and Peralta. We look what SoL will get, and the rest will be gone. So here, Jose Altuve exercised, so he'll be on the roster. But Baez exercises player option to go to free agency. So we did put the qualifying offer on him immediately after this. And then we thought, well, we have to sign Baez at this point. We gave him the qualifying offer. And Kenta Maeda is kind of the odd man out, even if we bring in SoL and then Gaudry up from the minors. And we look for a place where we can dump some cash, and we dump him over to the Yankees. Kind of a rare interdivision trade, but I felt pretty confident that Maeda wouldn't come to bite us later. As for arbitration, we give everyone arbitration that you see here besides Robert Stock. We brought him in because of some injuries at pitching, and we didn't want to waste anyone's minor league options for having to go up and down, so we went ahead and signed him off the free agent portion. I think it was around June or July of the season, so everyone else will be signed. As for all the re-signings in the minors, we resigned everyone unless they were a lower overall, mixed with a lower potential, and up there in age. And then also, two big guys we let go was Maikel Franco, citing the issue of cap space, but also the fact that I thought we could get better at the position, and Garrett Hampson obviously was the other one. Great player, but I wasn't going to pay the $9 to $12 million a year that he was asking for. Franco was asking for $7 million at that point, and I don't think the versatility for those two players could do something, because I can get a player that can play all over the place in the future. So for the 40-man, we did a couple of guys that we did protect, but otherwise we didn't really expect anyone. But we'll get the Rule of 5 later, because we have some free agents, and there's a lot of good pitchers out here. Jesus Luzardo, David Peterson has an offer from the Mets. Dustin May has one, but a couple of bids. DeGrom, qualifying offer. I mean, I didn't see anything that we wanted to break the bank on. Chris Sale didn't have any offers. We saw Joe Musgrove, who was the runner-up in the NL. I think he was the third place guy in the Cy Young, but I wasn't going to compete to get him. I didn't see anyone that was intriguing down below. So we looked at Sale. Sale didn't want a massive deal, and so we end up giving him one. And in the rotation, I want to go with Dwayne Gowdry as the one starting. And then Woods Richardson's kind of in the bullpen in case we do have some injuries or something of that matter. He's the first one up. I saw Whit Merrifield here, and this is the guy that for $6 to $7 million we can bring in, actually a lot less. For about $2 or $3 million, we can bring him in on a player option on top of that. So we'll see if he signs. Ultimately, I think he will. No bids and more of a versatile player to go around. So from here, there was a couple of big signings. As we start simming, Will Smith goes to the Padres. Griffin Canning to the Dodgers. Them trying to replace Dustin May. And then Colin Pache ends up going to the Padres. And then we see that Dustin May does go to the Red Sox. So that's a big one there. But Pache leaving wasn't great. We tried to give Alex Young an offer, and then he goes to the Twins on a big $6.9 million a year. Jordan Alvarez of the Braves. The Braves trying to get something to get over and back into the World Series. James Karinchak then goes over to the Yankees, and then here we are with Baez. I saw the qualifying offer was $20.9 million. And at that point, I thought maybe we do the same thing as the contract that we did with Baez. We give him a 2-year deal with a player option so he can opt out next year if he wants to, and then give him pretty much the qualifying offer at about $21 million. If he accepts the qualifying offer anyway, that's what happens. So, at the end of the day, that should be good. As you see there, Nico Horner leaves the Cubs to go to the Phillies. That was in there as well. And then we're pushing cap space hell at this point, as this is the point where we gave one to Maikel Franco. We can't get him because Javi Baez, and a couple of signings with Garrett Hampson going over to the Brewers after they lost Keston Hura. So we looked through DeGrom, probably going to go back to the Nats. Nothing big. Looking through here to see if Baez actually did sign. He did. We just didn't get the alert on it. And so we see here Javi Baez with this 2-year deal. A couple of trades, a couple of big ones this offseason. Padres get Juan Costa from the Astros, and the Astros get Eric Pardinho and Irving Lopez. I thought this was a weird trade until I looked at their roster, and then Stubbs can play on the outfield, and then Real Muto can play at first or a couple of infield positions. And so getting Juan Costa in there at second base and giving the other two, I mean, it gives them a lot more flexibility, which is a good play for the Padres. So Rule 5 draft, we were at 22, and as you see there for the Rangers, go ahead and grab Chance Sisco, 31 years old catcher. I mean, he was down the minors. He was really our third catcher at the end of the day, so nothing big. I skimmed through, saw a couple of pitchers, but Where they were, I did not think it warranted for them to stay up at the majors. I saw a couple of developmental guys, but again, we have the guys that we probably want to promote within our organization. So ultimately, we didn't take anyone in the Rule of 5 draft. One big trade, Bryce Harper is traded from the Phillies. And that trade is big because the Cardinals trying to get over that hump because they were eliminated by the Braves. Arbitration, fairly routine, nothing crazy. Still kind of shocked about that Cardinals trade. But here we are in a budget deficit. I'm not sure how the game does a budget deficit at this point, if there's like a certain date that we have to get under the cap. But if that's the case, I mean, the guy that was looking at trading, maybe at this point, I mean, Jesse Winker is making 12.1, but I would like to keep him. So maybe it's Diaz, who knows at this point. But here is going to be our rotation. Julio Urias, Alek Manoah, Chris Sale, Tyler Mahle, and Dwayne Gaudry. And the rest are some guys that we're going to call up for spring training because this is our spring training roster right here. Fairly the same, though, in our batting order. Trey Turner, Baez, Altuve, Guerrero, Winker, Bitchette, Schwarber, Biggio, Robles. Winker, though, playing that DH, and then when he's out, we kind of have some depth. Merrifield, anywhere we need a break, he can play pretty much all over the place. Justin Turner, Jesse Winker, obviously our DH. Jacone Diaz is going to be, or Hakeem Diaz, sorry, will be the guy that's up, and Seacrest will probably be back down in the minors. So we had an opportunity to look at a couple of guys to resign because in the spring training phase, you can kind of sign a couple of guys for long-term deals. We got a couple of guys like Simeon Richardson and Zach Logue, stuff like that. We pretty much put those guys, if they weren't in arbitration, we signed them up until their arbitration date, or we ended up just kind of waiting to see how they kind of perform. One of them is Jose Altuve. We'll see how he does this season, what he actually decides to do in the offseason. He might have some guys, some teams actually bid on him. Remember, we had that window in the offseason to kind of sign him or stick him with the tag if we need to. Whitley was another one. Schwarber, we're going to see how he does. Moreno, another guy we pushed out to arbitration. Pretty much our future at the catcher position. I just do not think he's ready to take those over the everyday time. Kobayashi, approaching 24 years old at this point. We push him out to arbitration as well. Doesn't want a whole lot of money, but Kobayashi is a guy that we drafted. So again, I want to see some of these guys that we drafted here in the organization long term. Miguel Geraldo, still getting him, still developing, and didn't want too much, so we pushed him out to a 2-year deal, and that will be fine. And then Diaz, who's at the MLB level at this point, 21 years old, not wanting a lot in the grand scheme of things, but we'll see how he performs. And Justin Turner, same thing, wants $7 million, and we'll see, and maybe we'll see if he tests. There's no real reason to kind of see a player like Diaz and sign him to $7 million. That's 73 overall, 27 years old. There's just no reason to do that at that point. Schwarber, though, he's played good for our organization. He wants 3 times the salary that he's making now. And so we're going to have to see if we have Moreno up there. So as the depth chart, as we go through at 2026, this is kind of what we're looking at on the team for this year. 3rd overall in the MLB on paper, $259.9 million spent on the team in total. 13th in speed, 10th in contact, 2nd in power, 6th in pitching, and 8th in defense. As we kind of go through, we see some of the guys that are going to come off the books, but you know we're going to re-sign a lot of these guys. Bo Bichette's not going to, obviously he's going to retire on the team. Same thing with Biggio and Guerrero. But a guy like Alek Manoah, we can't let him leave. Julio Urias is going to be locked up for years. Pharrell, same thing. So there's a lot of players that we are not going to allow to leave. But kind of give you an idea of the depth chart, what we look at on paper compared to the rest of MLB. And that will be the wrap-up of the live stream. Hopefully this kind of tells you where we're at in here. I'm going to be playing some of the spring training games offline, and we will get through spring training rather quickly so we are ready to go into this season. Roster's mostly the same at this point. We'll feature some of the guys that are on the younger side. We'll see what they have at the MLB level and kind of see what we have in reserve. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, guys. Go ahead and leave a like below, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Later.